A pleasant day and a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have seen many sports personalities. So today we are going to interview a very unique sports personality through our interview. This is a special discussion for Rupavahini ChannelEye. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, being a sports personality and being an internationally recognized sports personality is an onerous and a tremendous task. So we have a personality, an inborn Sri Lankan, has succeeded the international arena. A very warm welcome to you, sir, Kishan Wickramsinghe.
Thank you.
So Mr. Kishan Wickramasinghe is the owner of the Wicks Tennis Academy, USA, California, and he is the National Director of Tennis Federation for Guam Tennis Federation. And sir, being a Sri Lankan, winning the international arena, so how do you feel about that?
I feel good. I mean, it's been a long career. I started playing tennis in the 1970s, and eventually I left Sri Lanka in 1980. After I won junior nationals, I moved to the States to play college tennis there. And after college tennis, I decided to start coaching and not go back on the professional tour.
Right.
And it has been really great. I mean, I trained a lot of Sri Lankans.
Yes.
You know, especially Manjula Virakone, Sanjay Virakone, Dhananjay Soisa, Rohan De Silva. When I came back to train them in the Davis Cup venues here in the 90s, early 90s. And it has been a great career.
Right. So when you were living in Sri Lanka, so your schooling time, you might be having some beautiful memories to share with your fellow Sri Lankans.
Yes, I went to Ananda College, where actually I was a table tennis captain first.
Table tennis, not tennis.
Not tennis.
Right. So you moved from table
tennis
to the outside.
Yeah, to the outside venue of tennis. But I was playing cricket also at SSC. And FC Deserum was my coach at that time at SSC, and I quit cricket and table tennis eventually.
Both cricket and table tennis.
Yeah.
Right. So with that exposure, just I'm going to ask you, shifting from one sport to another sports is like, it's a bit difficult. Sometimes the cricket is similar, the ball is same size, so we can just say some predictions. But how do you feel that shift? Was it successful for you?
Yes, I mean, you know, I think, you know, if you have the talent, things come easier than if you don't have the talent, right? So it came naturally to me as I picked up the tennis racket. It was like I've been playing tennis for years. So the transition for me was smooth, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So with that transition, now you have clinched to the international arena, one of the most professional players and a professional coach. So sir, when it comes to your success story, so you have shifted, and like within what time duration that you moved out of Sri Lanka to pursue the career?
Yeah, so in 1980 I left. Before that, I actually was 2 years I was playing in England and Asia. I was playing all the tournaments.
Right.
And then in 1980 I went to college in New Mexico, and 2 years at the University of Nevada, Reno.
Right.
So there it was, I mean, Division I tennis. It was very strong tennis, you know, I mean, it's at the highest level of the US tennis.
Right.
And I won the Big Sky Conference 2 years in a row. I was on the All-Star team for the US. So my college career was really good. But unfortunately, I was a Sri Lankan playing in the United States, so I was not looked upon as a United States individual, so to speak, to get help, you know, because we are from another country. So we didn't get that USTA support because we were international students playing in the US. So that is the only part where I could not make that transition to go back on the professional tour. But you know, my coaching career took off, of course, after that. So,
like being so much qualified, you lacked a small place, being a Sri Lankan and playing in, performing in another country. But for the moment, we can see a great personality through you. You have succeeded each and every obstacle. Can you just explain your success story related to that part? Oh, well, I mean, I actually came into coaching a little bit by accident. I got a break to coach at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center in Long Beach. It was, I met somebody who I just said hello to, and they asked me, hey, have you played tennis before? And I said, I
told them a little bit about my tennis success. They said, "Oh, you should be teaching tennis. You know, what are you doing?" You know, so I said, "Okay, I don't mind teaching." And then he said, "Oh, come and give me a lesson." He was the director of the program there, and I just gave him a lesson, and he said, "Oh, you're a natural. You should be teaching tennis." And so that's how I got back into tennis around 1988.
1988.
Yes.
So after that, like, it's 2023. So it's a huge time span. So what did you do within that time period?
Oh wow! I trained juniors who played the US Open. I trained maybe about 20 or 30 All-Americans.
Can you say some names of them, if you don't mind?
Well, there were people like Tiffany Brymer who played the US Open and got them a full scholarship to USC. Then, of course, the Sri Lankan students like Manju and Sanjay, they went on to two universities, University of Nevada, Reno, and also to Jacksonville State in Florida. I trained Davis Cup players from Venezuela, Ghana. They were in World Group 1. They were playing Britain in 1979. I mean, sorry, 1997. So I was told to train their team because all the kids were training with me in my academy. So it was Danny Amabu. He played #1, and Alex Ofori and Frank Ofori. They were all, Frank Ofori was top 200 in the world. So we were in World Group 1 and we played Britain. And at that time it was Tim Henman was #1 for Britain. And one of my players, Danny Amabu, he actually split sets with him. And so he had a good performance there too. So, I mean, I've trained all those kind of Davis Cup players from Tunisia, Fed Cup players from Tunisia. Salim Bakar was one of them, and Sami Issam from Tunisia. So my academy produced a lot of international players from California.
What is the relationship between Kishan Wickramasinghe and Wick's Tennis Academy?
Yes, you know, the word Wickramasinghe is a really tough thing for the Americans to pronounce all the time. So I just shortened it to Wicks, and that stuck, you know, for many years. So I just went with Wick's Tennis Academy, and everybody's able to then say my name, and so that became popular, and you know, it was in the news like that. So
Kishan Wicks.
Kishan Wicks.
But the passport name still Kishan Wickram.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a unique question. Can we introduce Kishan Wicks, or rather Kishan Wickramasinghe, as a professional coach for any age group, any aged tennis player, any aged individual?
Yes, I mean, my highest age player I trained was 92 at Silver Lakes Tennis Club, and the oldest lady I trained was 84. Betty was her name. So I have done the adult, you know, coaching too. So not just the junior coaching, you know. So I have that. I have the leeway of knowing what to do with the adults and the juniors separately. So it has been. I've trained from what we call munchkin level, 6 years old, all the way up to the age of 92.
So you have the experience of a coach being the smallest and the highest end, both ends.
Absolutely,
you have seen every performance of each and every aged individual.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. Then, sir, you mentioned you're a Sri Lankan. You always say I'm a Sri Lankan.
Yes.
That's what you lacked some opportunities in other countries as well. But you stand to stay as a Sri Lankan.
Absolutely. I mean, I was born here. My family is here. My brother is here, Damit Wickramasinghe. He's here, and my cousins are here. So I always feel that I'm a part of Sri Lanka. Every time you use the word Sri Lanka, you know, my eyes open up, and you know, I start smiling because that's what I would like to actually represent. Yes. But all this time I've been representing other nations, you know, in their
and you mentioned many other names of other nations, and even the Ghana Tennis Federation. Now you have been the national director there, and you have assisted many other countries. But still, you say I'm a Sri Lankan.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm Sri Lankan to the bone. It's just that I've not had the opportunity to come back here to do something for the people of you know, Sri Lanka in the way of sports and tennis. So that's the only part which I have a hunger for, but I have not been able to achieve that yet.
So can we just expose that a little bit more? Your hunger towards, you're eager towards that performance, being a Sri Lankan, helping Sri Lankans.
Absolutely. I mean, you see, that is the driving force actually for me. Is to, I've always been wanting to do something for Sri Lankan students, because they have the talent. The talent is not the issue in this country, I think, for most sports anyway. It is just that they don't have a three-dimensional view of the game of tennis. You know, you can't just technically prepare somebody, you have to technically prepare them physically and mentally. So when you look at any kind of stroke, it has to be a three-dimensional view, and you have to understand how to train it like that. Not just a technical part. Yes, that is very important, but the mental and the physical part, which actually becomes a greater part after you learn the technique, all of a sudden will lack when you go into international competition, because those players have been trained in that philosophy. So there has to be a philosophical change in Sri Lanka, the coaches. They have to actually learn to be sports psychologists. They have to learn what conditioning is. I mean, real explosive conditioning specifically for the sport of tennis. They have to educate themselves. And also nutrition. I mean, nutrition is something, it's a huge part of somebody's performance, right? So you have to understand how nutrition works. So you have to study all the time in those three aspects. Otherwise, the students here will always be behind the students in the international arena.
Wicks, a three-dimensional coach.
That is what I am.
Right. So with that exposure, with what you have gained throughout the past years, with the unique experience, teaching, coaching individuals for each and every age level, you have the best potential to serve Sri Lanka.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Every time I come, I talk to the president, Iqbal. I've talked to Suresh Subramaniam. They both played tennis with me in the juniors, so I know them very well, and they do a great job of running the the tennis as a whole. In the country, it's a big obligation. So I don't know where I could fit in at the moment. They have to have a structure as a national center, meaning the national center has to be a national center. It has to have a director who has the international experience to be able to actually perform and bring all the top kids into that one sector and train them. And I did not see that this time around.
Do you see any sufficient exposure to tennis in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, you mean as related to the people come from like cricket? I mean, that kind of exposure? Well, of course, we are always dealing with the team sports, right? Team sports always takes precedence over all other sports. So, for example, cricket and soccer are, some of the biggest sports in the world, right? It's hard to attract the talented players from there. But above all of that, tennis has always been there. I mean, for over 100 years, Sri Lankans have been playing tennis. So there is a group of people who will come towards tennis. So I don't think we'll have an issue with competing with the team sports, even though it is a big issue. We can get the talented players to play tennis. That I do believe.
Is it a matter with attitudes?
Yes, it is a matter with attitudes. There's no question about that. But that is there again. The philosophy from the coaches have to be there from a very, very at a young age. If the coaches develop players, the parents will see that tennis is a sport which their child can actually become good at. So if the coaches actually give all of that experience to the students, I think we'll be able to keep drafting more players from other sports.
Right. So when it comes to a sports like tennis, can you just explain to me, is it like far more than it's hitting a tennis ball with a tennis racket?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's absolutely tennis is the hardest technical sport in racket sports. So you have table tennis, badminton, squash, and all other sports, but tennis is the hardest sport because the racket is the longest. So it is very hard to actually technically hit a tennis ball properly. So there is that form of where people get discouraged a bit. So that is where the coaches have to be better at being able to make sure they are able to stay in it. So the group classes take more precedence over private lessons, because in a group class the children are a little more relaxed. So the group lessons last longer than most private lessons do. So that's one of the ways you can actually combat that technical disadvantage of our sport.
Right. In Sri Lanka, when you just revolve around the sports tennis, can you just see a national policy or a national identity to tennis in Sri Lanka?
I think I have not seen much. I've been here for a week, but I know that the national, the tennis center itself has many coaches, and they're all privately doing their own programs, and that's the way it's been run. So the identity, to bring the pride back, I would say that they need to go into a national training philosophy again, if they can, because that is where the students will be able to get that feeling that they're playing for their country.
Is it really difficult to build up such a policy?
I really don't think it's that difficult. But then again, you know, you have to ask the governing bodies, you know, why it is not happening. I don't have an answer, you know, clearly for that right now, but I think it is doable.
As a professional coach, as a professional individual, as a professional Sri Lankan who have succeeded in the international arena, what sort of support that you can extend to the fellow Sri Lankans?
Well, I for sure can at least help them and educate even the coaches here and even the parents on what they are lacking, because I can see that really fast when I look at a student. So I can actually help the parents. I can help the coaches if they want that. I can help them also get to the United States in the way of the American system, because I'm very familiar with it. And that's where the draw is. So most of the parents want their students to be good enough to be able to eventually go to the States and play tennis in college and stuff, and then come back hopefully and play Davis Cup or Billie Jean King Cup. So that system is what I've been in. So I can absolutely help any parent who has a child who wants to play tennis in the United States. I can actually help them get there.
I am an individual, I'm a person who wants to play tennis. I have a racket and someone gives me a tennis ball and I want to play. But, so you can just train me as well, just how to hit and some professional stuff after this interview, 5-10 minutes. But it won't take me up to a higher level playing in the States or any other performance that is expected in the international arena. Absolutely. How come it happens, sir?
That happens when you have, like for the example is the United States, they do have now a humongous national tennis center in Florida. So that tennis center was developed recently. So Coco Golf is a part of that system. So even the big United States, which has so many academies and so many people playing tennis, they still have decided to have a really big national training center. So without a national training center, it is going to be really hard to actually do what you're trying to say, to reach those higher levels. Yes, you can play some tennis, but that is not going to get you to the international arena.
Do we need a huge sum of money to that?
No, I think it's more of the development of the coaches and also development of a strong center, so that we have some equipment. So equipment is very important in tennis. So some money will have to be spent there and to keep up the grounds and the facilities. And we need strong hard courts. The clay we have here is a different clay from the French clay, so to speak, which is a completely different feeling when you play on it. So our clay courts, we call it home court advantage, but it's not an advantage when you go to the international arena. So some changes would have to be made in those areas for sure, but we have to have conditioning and the mental side of the game right in the same center. So that when the students come, they get everything. So when they come, they play tennis, then they do their conditioning program, and then they do their mental program. And then you also have to have a nutritionist who we can at least send blood results to and see how, how all of the makeup of the student is. So we have to have that science now behind and what products we give them for their enhancement of their tennis career. So it has become a big game. It's no longer that pick up a racket and just hit balls. It is now completely off because the science and the technology has taken over.
That means with the existing infrastructure here in Sri Lanka, it's possible with what you said as inputs.
Yes, it is very possible to do a strong national program which can actually compete at the highest levels of the international game, because we have access to the world now, even through YouTube or WhatsApp or whatever it is. I mean, you can get access. You can take a flight, to another country to play a tournament. It is not as hard as it was when we were playing tennis. So the exposure won't be a problem. It's how you train is the problem.
That means what is to be trained should be trained properly.
Yes, it is. The views, and I mean, it is definitely just hitting tennis balls right now. We have to do better than that.
Right. So with the policy, with the framework, with some sort of a national center, a training mechanism, we can just build up within the existing infrastructure tennis in Sri Lanka to an international level.
100%.
If Wicks is there to support fellow Sri Lankans, can you just make this more elegant?
Yes, I mean, of course, I mean, I know I have what it takes, and I have the passion for it. I have the technical ability, I have the intelligence for it. I've been doing it for quite a long time. So I actually now had to thank the Guam Tennis Federation and Torgan Smith, the president there, for actually hiring me to do that philosophy over there.
How was the experience, by the way, at Guam Tennis? Just can you explain that?
Yeah, it's actually a United States territory. So it has the same system as the US base. We have 11 beautiful tennis courts, hard courts, brand new, a beautiful tennis center, and they really want to produce champions. So they want to have that structure I'm talking about, and they want me to develop that. They want me to bring in more coaches. They want me to do things. So it's a little bit easier to go into a system where they realize what it is, because they can see the system in the States because they are part of that. So they want to have the same kind of program there. So I'm fortunate in a way that I'm in Guam.
Right. If there is some opportunity here in Sri Lanka, you won't step back.
Well, I mean, if there's a real strong opportunity, of course, this is my country. I'm not going to say no. I mean, I will definitely want to do it. If Sri Lanka wants to do something with me, I will be there.
What's the message that you need to give to your fellow Sri Lankans at the moment, sir?
I would say that use Google because you can get anything you want in the way of tennis training, the philosophy. There's so much stuff in there. I would say to the parents and the coaches, educate yourself about the game. Don't let other people educate your students. You yourself educate yourself and then present information to your coaches and say, why can't we do this? I just saw this on YouTube. So why can't we relate that to the training here? So slowly like that, if the students and the parents themselves actually take possession of the training, so to speak, I believe that we can change some of the coaching here and the students can be better. So I would say the parents and the student has to become educators of the game.
Thank you very much, sir. Being a Sri Lankan, being here and extending your helping hand and trying to do something to the upliftment of tennis in Sri Lanka. And even we're very happy as Sri Lankans that you have succeeded in the international arena, having many achievements, having many students worldwide have won the international games, and you can say some beautiful, elegant names as your fellow students. Thank you very much once again. As fellow Sri Lankans, we're very happy about such tremendous personalities who have succeeded in the international arena. Kishan Wickramasinghe. Right. Okay. So thank you very much, sir. Mr.
you.
Kishan Wickramasinghe is the owner of the Wicks Tennis Academy, USA, California, and the National Director of Guam Tennis Federation. So we had this exclusive interview with Mr. Kishan Wickramasinghe, and this is all about tennis. So we invite you all to build up your ego towards tennis, and let's make tennis one of the most important and name branding games here in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant day.